how much does the in Marxist terms the bourgeoisie control the proletariat population? I especially in terms in America when it comes to race. I feel like we're dealing with a class war that's been reclassified as a racial thing, where it's very obvious to me that how much money you have is almost how you're targeted, of what is important to you and what to be afraid of, and I feel like issues are being, I don't know how to say this in a non-controversial way. I feel like issues are being there are certain issues that are being perpetuated and propagated and blown out of proportion in order to keep people's attention away from other things that should have equal or if not more attention that affect our society as a whole.
Democrats are very good at smoke and mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
You ever seen the movie Wag the Dog?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
You know what Wag the Dog is?
I don't.
So basically, they created like a crisis, and they hired a Hollywood producer to essentially produce this crisis, actors, everything, and then they actually had to take him out because he wanted to go to the public with it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying that's what's happening now. It's an interesting theory.
Is it possible that that's what?
It's absolutely possible, but the reason I brought that up is because Democrats historically don't have a very good track record with civil rights. Well, they voted every time against the emancipation of slaves, to the eradication of Jim Crow, to equal rights, to voting rights. I mean, they've been on the wrong side of history every single time. Yet somehow, around 40 years ago or so, 50 years ago, they made people believe that they were completely changed and on the other side. Now, this is the party that's
rebranding themselves.
Correct. They were it was brilliantly done. And they have control over a lot of minority cities, and if you see the minorities in these cities, they don't do well under Democratic leadership, and almost always when they go to like cities that are run by Republicans, they immediately do better, and again, this is not to say that Democrats are always bad and Republicans are always good. That's just not the case.
Mm-hmm.
And if it comes right now, in my opinion, the Democrats are really bad. They're bad for the people that they represent, and they're bad for the U.S. economy. They are far left in their agendas. But when the right goes bad, it goes bad, really bad as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we really have to do what we can to focus our energy to bring everybody more to the middle. You can be a conservative in some areas and be more liberal in your ideas in others. And that's really what it should be. And I think most people have that philosophy in general. Like they don't feel all the way allied with one side or the other, or polarized. I have a lot of I like a lot of social programs. They're built and designed to help people that need a helping hand. That's okay, but we should also raise people not to take advantage of this and have a lifelong dependency on it, but to use it as a crutch when you need it, and then to stabilize yourself and have that personal sense of pride that you're going to provide for yourself. And that we're here to help the country more than the country is here to help us, right? Like for future generations. And that mindset is being taken away from people. A lot of, and by the way, it seems like the black race is the only race talked about as a minority. There's a lot of minorities in this country,
mm-hmm.
But it's more polarizing to talk about the downtrodden black person and how that black person can't succeed in life and won't succeed in life, and to kind of hold them in that position rather than enable black people to understand that they are the same as everybody else, have the same opportunities, and should strive towards the same things, which is bettering themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not to say that this is a comparison, but I guess my relation to that is like when I'm suffering from drug and alcohol addiction, like I felt like the biggest piece of shit on earth, and like I was worthless and I'm never going to be anything. And like I found a way to get out of that and face some things and know that I could do better. So it's like everybody has that opportunity no matter who you are, no?
Well, I'm a living example of it. That's why I take a lot of issue with this stuff, because I'm African American. I'm a crack baby. I was abandoned. My mother was a junkie and left me in the hospital. I was adopted into an alcoholic family. You know, it was, and then I grew up in the hood, and it was like, you know, all those things. Yeah, that's not who it's. That doesn't stop us from being who we are. You can grow up in a war zone. You can be born in a war zone,
Right.
and that's what comes back to. Like, I don't want to lose the American dream. The thing that people, you know, the Marxist agenda wants to tear down the very beacon of hope that that someone like me could not ascend through class systems over the past 25 years of my life, through hard work, through all persevering, yeah, and you know, it kind of is strange to me to watch people like LeBron James and, you know, NFL players and these sports players taking a knee. It's if you did not live in this country, you would not be able to have become a millionaire athlete, right? That is not available to you.
See, these are very good intentioned people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I believe LeBron James is a good person,
Sure.
not without knowing him personally.
Think
Because
he's
I've
just
seen-
misinformed?
I'm sorry?
You think he's just misinformed?
Well, I think he's trying to do the right thing. And sometimes when you're trying to do the right thing, you want to be perceived a certain way. You listen to information that might lead you in a direction where you start to hate something else, like hate a different ideal. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people. They just don't know the reality of it. Like, how do you argue against Black Lives Matter, right?
Yeah, without looking like a racist.
Well, no, how do you argue it at all? Of course, Black Lives Matter.
Right, of course.
Right.
Well, the movement is
Right.
not the same as a corporation.
Right.
Not just that, but like, it's very well worded. Black Lives Matter. So when you initially look at that statement, you say, okay, obviously I agree with that, right?
Right.
To look further into it and to look for why that organization was formed, who formed that organization, where does the money go that people donate to that organization, is just so far beyond what the normal person does.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you go down a road, right, like, it's very hard to diverge from that path, right? So for LeBron, right now, if LeBron came out and was like, you know what, I was wrong about Black Lives Matter, I was wrong about this movement, I no longer agree with it, it's very hard for him to do that because he's gone down that road and he doesn't want to look like he doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't want to look like he's not vested in things and researching things. He wants to look like a very smart individual, which he might be, I don't know him personally again, who is not going to be fooled by somebody.
But why are public figures not entitled to make mistakes anymore?
They're absolutely entitled to make mistakes, but in their head, they're greater than, you know?
Oh, so the ego says to be wrong is to die.
So I cannot be wrong
yeah.
because I am greater than, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm an exceptional person at this or that, I'm greater than. And you'll also find this in very well-educated people, right? They go through the education system and they're indoctrinated, really, and brainwashed through their education.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, well, I've been fed this for 25 years, so everything I know about life, this is the reality that I know. So if I question this, then I have to question everything, not just about my reality, about myself, about who I adore and who I admire. You know, like looking behind the curtain and seeing Oz is very difficult for people. They don't want, even if they know Oz is back there, they like the fantasy of the world that they're in. And it's very difficult for them to get out of that. And again, when you're vilified for it, when people call you a racist or a sexist or whatever ist you want to throw in there, and they think poorly of you and they don't want to support you financially anymore with whatever you do, and all these things, all these negatives that are associated with it, it's really hard to take that stance. So when I see people take that stance, even if it's for the wrong reasons, it's hard not to admire them, you know? Now, of course, some people are so high up, it's hard to, you know, Kanye West, his life isn't going to change if he doesn't make another dollar.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty well off and he's set for the rest of his life. But it's hard it's hard for him to take those stances.
But it's interesting how people, where you say like whether you make another dollar or not, your life's not going to change. It's interesting still how some will go with whatever the narrative is for whatever the people they're interested in doing, and so how some will go, no, that's not how I feel, and I'll say this because this is my view, and what are you going to do? Take my word from me? I'm already okay. It's interesting that.
But they will try to do that. The cancel culture is very strong.
Well, you've experienced that. Can you kind of talk about your experience with some of that stuff I've seen online that you were dealing with?
So I own a comic book company, comic book stores. I love comic books.
Right. Yeah, I've been to the hangar in Vegas.
Yeah. Well, I'm a massive nerd.
Yeah.
You know, so, and I enjoy the collecting world, and I enjoy the relationships I have with people that are in that world. It's very much like music, where, you know, you look out in the audience, you just see fans, right? Like, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, what culture they are, ethnicity,
it's just
religious
your people.
background, sexual orientation. It makes no difference because we are unified in our love for the music, both us as the performers and them as the listeners, right? And it's the same in comics. Like, if you like Superman or Black Panther or whomever, we're all fans of that together, right? So it's something that brings people together. Yet there are certain people, and I don't think they're real fans. I just think they're people that troll and look for, you know, ways to disrupt, and a lot of them are paid to do so. I believe that. You know?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about that.
So,
troll farms.
you know, I've had people go on Torpedo Comics and give us a bad review and say, you know, the owner is a fascist and all this. Well, these are people that either don't know the definition of a fascist, right, or are doing that reversal of roles where they're the fascists and they're kind of putting that moniker on you, right, which is a great tactic if you think about it. Worked great for Hitler, too, you know?
Yeah.
He had his brown shirts go around and beat people up and intimidate. You think everybody in Germany wanted to kill millions of people or to go to war or do all that? At a certain point, when you're in a real fascist state, you don't have a choice. If you don't go along with it, you'll end up dead. You know? So self-preservation kicks in, and you know it's wrong to do what you're doing, but you have to do it because you have kids, or you have a family, or you just don't want to die.
Until ultimately it just desensitizes you,
and you go along with it, and that's it. And at a certain point, there's no going back, right? Although there are some very brave people do continue to fight, and a lot of them lose their lives for it, or lose their financial life, or whatever it is. So here in the United States, we have benefits. You know, we have Bill of Rights, we have the Constitution, so we have certain protections. But that doesn't protect you against stupidity. You know, it doesn't protect you against hate, and it can hurt you, right? Like, I'm going to release a comic book very soon, based on an original story that I wrote, and it's perfectly suited for TV or Netflix or something like that. I don't know if that's ever going to happen for me because of what I put out there. You know, unless it changes very soon, which it could, by the way. The mindset could change. The generation that is growing up right now is watching the destruction that's happening, and they may be like, that's not for us. You know, we're going to do things a different way. In fact, you turned me off to that way of thinking because of it. And that often will be the case. But, you know, I also see a lot of people getting voted into Congress who are detrimental to the health of this nation. Like people like AOC, who I despise.
Yeah.
And again, this is somebody who in her own head, I imagine she thinks she's doing what's best for people, but really she's just taking opportunity away from people. And the most blatant example of that is the entire deal with Amazon that she destroyed. Her and her friends destroyed them in Brooklyn. You know, it would have provided what, like, I don't remember if it was $6 billion or more. That's just in initial salaries, but you have to think about what that does to the environment around you, right? Like, restaurants do better, dry cleaners do better, gas stations do better. Everybody does better when the money is pumped into that community, and it's insane that the very same people that she basically hurt are voting her back into office. It's perplexing to me. It's like,
well, I don't understand
the philosophy.
Very bizarre. I bang my head against the wall trying to understand how people have been so manipulated to not understand what's going on. And Did you see the what I was just talking to you about the documentary on Netflix that we were talking about last week?
Oh, the social
The
dilemma.
social dilemma. It talks about how the algorithms on social media build these echo chambers that reconstitute whatever it is that we consume and like. And I wonder, I mean, is that part of the problem? Is it like, are people getting bombarded with only things that they like from these people, and they're not able to see the effects that their decisions are a detriment to the community?
Well, maybe, but at the end of the day, we're all responsible for ourselves. But like I said, it's hard to really delve into things and ask those questions, because at the end of the day, you have to look in the mirror and live with yourself, because you made these decisions. So it takes a lot of strength to combat that. But bringing it back to the System of a Down thing, it's not really about Serge versus me and my ideas and his ideas. We'll argue probably for the rest of our lives on that. But when we get together, we really try to just put politics aside and have a family life and enjoy each other's company and talk about artistic things. And, we have very different ideas on how the world works, but that's okay. I don't hate him for that. I hope he doesn't hate me for that. And like I said, if you really believe in this country, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you have to fight for the other side's aisle, the other side's rights to have those opinions and to express those opinions. I can't say that enough.